I just watched Companion and I thought it was pretty good. And really good is really all I can really say about this film, and I'll explain. This was directed by Drew Hancock, starring Sophie Thatcher, Jack Quaid, even Lucas Gage, and Megan Suri, as well as comedian Harvey Gillian. I believe that's how it's pronounced. I've actually seen films with all of these actors, especially Quid, who's been in The Boys, as well as The Hunger Games, and who will also be in another film coming out this year, Novocaine, so he's definitely been a busy boy. The story is about the main character essentially finding out that she is a robot. As you watch the film, you'll soon realize that she was made as a quote-unquote companion robot. Now, I don't need to be the one to tell people what that really means, but the movie also doesn't shy away from that. But her and her boyfriend, who is a real person, played by Jack Quid, goes on this cabin adventure, and eventually things don't end up great. I thought everyone did good with their performances. Sophie specifically I thought did the best. Also, the relationship between Eli and Patrick was also pretty well done. I'll get to more of that later. It really seems like everyone who was a part of this film really played into the roles really well and definitely were believable people. I also want to point out that Jack Quids, I probably am saying his name wrong, but Jack's character was probably the funniest out of everyone, and I do not believe he was supposed to be this funny. Probably because it's just so funny to see people who are really shitty people try to justify their actions. As far as its themes and genre, I really don't think this movie did a great job of playing into it. Like, yeah, there were some moments where it was like thriller-ish, where it's like, oh shit, that just happened. Oh no, what's gonna happen? But also the science fiction, I really wish they would have played more into that. I will talk more about it when I talk about the actual, like, movie itself, but I really don't think this movie did a great job of, exploring the whole robot girlfriend, or I'm sorry, companion aspect of this film. There are moments where the character seems to have this new found ability, but the girl or the main character just doesn't really take advantage of it to like its fullest abilities. I thought the writing seemed pretty fine. It seemed like the story was, very fluid. It flowed very well. At first, it seems like this is just a simple trip to just go to the cabin in the woods, but it slowly turns into this twisted, misadventure. There is some cheesiness to it, I will say, especially with the other robot, and I'll talk about that later. You definitely also could probably predict what was going to happen in this film a mile away before it even happened. This movie doesn't really do anything also that much with like animations or CGI, and really every other thing about this film was kind of just okay, if not just kind of basic in a way. Like nothing with editing, music, or cinematography. There's nothing really to talk about when it comes to these things. As far as originality, I mean, like I said earlier, there are some things that you could probably tell what's going to happen, and they kind of just happen, and you're thinking to yourself, oh wow, I definitely saw this coming. There are some moments in this film that are definitely really goofy. Like there are deaths in this film, and the reasons for these deaths are very funny and very comical. And again, I really don't think the movie was trying to be funny, but maybe it was in a subtle way. You really feel also for the main character, even though she is just a robot, you really do feel for her in some ways because she does have an unfortunate situation dealing with her shitty boyfriend. And there are moments in this film where it's like, you go girl, you fucking do this and you do that and everything. And in a sense, you kind of also like am glad certain things are playing out the way they are. This movie was also produced by Zach Cregger, who directed Barbarian, which is a film I definitely do want to see because I heard it got some high scores and everything, and I remember just seeing some interesting trailers about it, and he helped produce this film, Companion, and I don't know if like his talent, what part of his talent went towards this movie, but thought I'd just throw that in there. Yeah, to be perfectly honest, there really isn't much more I want to talk about. I'm just going to talk about the plot right now. Skip to this point in the video if you don't want to be spoiled. I do recommend this movie. I do think it's just a fun little watch, nothing too serious. So like I mentioned, the film takes place where the main character, played by Sophie, is going on this cabin like trip with her boyfriend, played by Jack Quaid, or Josh, and the main character's named Iris, and they're going on this trip, and they're supposed to be, with some other friends, and it seems like at first this is just a simple, vacation trip, and then we get introduced to all these other characters. We get introduced to Kat, played by Megan Suri, as well as Eli, played by Harvey. Also Patrick, played by Lucas, and then we get introduced to also this new character played by Rupert Friend, who's like this Russian mafia mobster in a way, but it's kind of just introduced in this film. Like there's no like subtlety with it at all. It's just like, hey, here's this criminal guy that you guys should watch out for. Here he is. Eli is with Patrick, and Kat is with this new person who I forgot his name, but he is important, this Russian mobster. I'm just gonna call him Rupert. So after the first day, everyone's chilling, partying, dancing, having sex, and all that. It's all, again, there's a lot of funny scenes, especially the sex scene with Josh and Iris. But the next day, Iris is looking out onto the water, and she notices that Rupert comes up to her and basically makes a move on her, and Iris has to retaliate because she's not feeling comfortable, and then Rupert threatens to kill her, and then Iris kills him. And there's this whole big moment because they're all confused, like, why would Iris do this? And then we find out that Josh has been jailbreaking his fucking girlfriend like an iPhone. And originally we were told that the robots are not supposed to kill her, not supposed to do any harm at all, and he managed to jailbreak it. And it turns out if Josh were to get caught doing this, he would be in serious trouble. Eventually Iris is told to go to sleep. That's how she goes into shutdown mode, and she then wakes up being tied up. And this is where Josh spills the beans, like, hey, you're a robot, you can pretty much tell me anything, you're super smart and everything. And there's this whole moment where they were on this trip to begin with to frame Rupert for everything. They were going to rob him and also kill him with the help of Iris, and just have Iris take the blame. And like mentioned, the only way they could do that is if they jailbreak it, so that's why she was jailbroken. Iris is like, fuck this, I don't want to take the blame, I'm a real person. She thinks she's real, but she really is a robot, and she definitely feels bad because she was made to basically love Josh no matter what, with all of her heart, and do anything to make him happy. But Josh is a complete fucking asshole and only sees her as a metal or an object or a piece of plastic that he has sex with. Yeah, really douchebag thing. And Iris, when left alone, escapes being tied up, and takes the phone that controls her and runs away with everything. And now Josh and everyone else in the house plans to just kill her. A lot of shenanigans happens. We get to find the backstory behind Eli and Patrick, how they met at a Halloween party. Kat was really in on this to really get in a relationship with Rupert pretty easily, just because she knew he had the money. We also find out that Rupert is actually not really a bad guy. He just has a lot of money, and he's a piece of shit because it was told that he cheated on his wife, but he's not like a criminal mastermind like they assumed he was. But eventually, as the search party is looking for Iris takes this opportunity to look through the phone and customize her settings. This is where I was talking about, like, this movie doesn't really go too deep into the science fiction part of it. We really only get to see her like change her eye color and her intelligence and like her language, and I'm sure there's other settings, and I know the robot was custom made to fit, you know, Josh's needs, like her skin and hair color, I'm sure, but I feel like it would have been cool if we got to see more settings. I also I'm pretty sure it was made this way so it could be more realistic. But again, it sucks that we didn't really get to see much for the science fiction part of this. I really would have loved to see her mess around with her settings. Even her messing with her intelligence settings doesn't really change that much. Like, yeah, she gets smarter, but like it feels like she doesn't act that smarter because she's still goofy and falling for certain things, and like when she thinks of plans and their hypotheticals and everything, they're not really the most thought out plans. And I feel like if she was really putting 100% intelligence into something, she could have found her way to like escape. So again, it feels like this whole intelligence part of the robot is kind of wasted. There's a moment where she's running away because she manages to get the car, which is voice activated, so you know they're definitely in the future. She runs away, but she gets pulled over by a cop, and Lucas is sent after her. Before all that, Eli fucking has the gun because there was a gun inside the vault with the money they were going to rob. But Eli accidentally kills himself when he gets himself into a tussle with Iris, but he dies, and Patrick is really upset, so he goes after Iris and finds her and kills the cop and beats the living shit out of him and gets her to come along. Also, earlier in this film, she got to change her voice. That's how she activated the car, and I thought that was pretty cool. But again, like, there's some cool things like the character did with the phone, and there's some things that they really could have done more. But after that, she gets tied up again. Also, between all this, Kat dies because she was going to take the money and say, fuck this, you're on your own, Josh. And then Josh tells Patrick, because he now controls Patrick, who is a robot, spoiler alert. But yeah, he's now a robot. After Eli died, Josh took control of him, and Josh is like, hey, stop Kat from leaving. And Patrick has lethality, or his like aggression turned up to 100, so he stabs Kat in the back and she fucking dies, and she wasn't able to leave. So again, a lot of comedic things just keep happening. Like I keep saying, I don't know if this was supposed to be this funny. But yeah, she's tied up. Now it's just Josh and Patrick and Iris, and they have their conversation over dinner, and her intelligence was turned down to 0. So she's almost not even responsive at all. She's barely even talking. And they get to talking to each other, and Josh reveals, you know, he's really just this guy who just complains about life. He's essentially a Reddit nice guy, if you know what I mean. And he thinks the world owes him a lot because he's had some tough things happen to him. It's really at this point when you get to realize, oh yeah, Josh is a piece of shit, and he definitely needs to go. But he pretty much controls everything, the phone and Iris and everything, and he gets her to shoot herself. And later, Josh is going to return Iris to the people who made the robots, and Patrick dresses up as an officer to like act as an alibi, and he was going to tell this story to the mechanics of the robot girlfriend, be like, oh, she went rogue, she killed everybody, she did all this and that. And then the mechanics were like, oh, okay, sure, we just got to make sure to check her security cameras and we'll be on our way. And Josh is like, oh shit, this is going to happen. And I think it's very funny that the mechanics are like, oh yeah, this guy jailbroke his girlfriend, and they know he's going to be guilty. There's also this moment where he didn't recognize Patrick at first, and then eventually when he's standing in front of a car, when they do the same thing in Wolfman where he's in front of the car, and it's very funny at night, and then he's like, oh, wait a minute, I do recognize that robot. It's one of our older models, but it's too late. One of the mechanic gets shot by Patrick, and then the other mechanic is being chased, and then Iris is in the back, who was like getting rebooted, who escaped and is kind of like acting on her own will. She eventually finds Patrick beating up the other mechanic and trying to kill him, and then she saves his life and everything. And then there's this moment where, oh, now both the robots are fighting, and you could tell this was gonna happen. Iris tries to convince Patrick that he's being manipulated, Josh is a liar, and the real feelings of love that he has was for Eli, who is now dead. And this works, and I think Patrick kills himself. I'm not too sure. Yeah, that's right. He kills himself. He puts like this electrical like outlet into his mouth, killing him. And the mechanic puts Iris on like this mode where she's fully free, if she isn't already, so she can now do what she wants. And she confronts Josh, and there's this fight scene that happens where Josh is throwing Iris everywhere after being confronted. And then eventually Josh gets fucking killed. And yeah, it was at this point where we really got to see how much of a piece of shit he was. If it wasn't clear already, it was like the third time, like, yes, movie, we get it. Josh is a piece of shit. He says all these things of how he really thought about Iris, and he's definitely a piece of shit, but it's fine. He's dead. Iris leaves with the money, gets a car, and drives off, and happens to notice another person who is possibly a companion robot, and she waves, and turns out her arm was really burnt from this candle experiment game she was playing with Josh to show how Josh like doesn't respect her. And yeah, she waves, and it's a robot arm, and she's like, oh shit, I could be free too. And then the movie ends. I will say I do like the message of like, I don't even know if it's a message, like the whole like leaving your abusive partner to live your own happy life. I like that, but I don't know if that's what they were going for. Maybe it was. I do think it overstayed its welcome. Like, we definitely get it, movie. Like, you don't need to like explain this to us. But yeah, I thought this movie was pretty funny, pretty okay, pretty good. I really don't know what I would give it as a score at first, and you know, I'd probably say a 7.5. I thought it just did everything just fine, but almost good, you know what I mean. So yeah, 7.5, that's where I stand on this film. What do you guys think? Let me know, have a conversation about it down below, and I will see you in another review.